Hey there, listener. Cass here. Before we get started, I want to jump in with some content warnings for you all. These are things which might be briefly mentioned or brought up throughout the episode, but that may be upsetting to some listeners. If so, that is totally okay, and please take care of yourself. This might not be the episode for you. If that's the case, hopefully we'll see you next week. Content warnings for this episode of Author's Note include use of the F slur and discussion of reclaiming that slur, dogpiling and public mobbing, as well as group harassment, the destruction or euthanasia of wildlife and wild animals, mentions of police brutality, talk of animals in circus performances, and passing mention of Noah Bradley and the allegations of rape against him. All that being said, let's get started with the episode. Officer and Mr. Truffles, you know they're gonna get in lots of trouble. And so are we, because we're talking about it this week. Hi, welcome to Author's Note.
Don't listen.
My name is Cass.
And my name's Teese.
Teese, how you doing this week?
Cass, I'm feeling really good.
Yeah. We just got done recording something super exciting, which you'll find out about next week.
Yeah.
And I think we're rolling high off of that. So we're going to have a real fun episode.
Yeah. And I got a job offer. And
Teese got a job.
Teese go to work. So I'm riding high off of that because I've been at the job that I'm currently at now for the past 2 years, and I've wanted to be gone literally since the first week I've worked there. So
and be paid an appropriate wage. You know how it be.
Yep. And this job is all of the above, so I'm really happy with that. And
so Teese is done with the podcast. They're leaving. It's
Goodbye.
A solo flight now. It's just me. Get ready for some really downer conversations.
Oh no. I hope
no, Teese is here forever.
No, I'm here forever. And even if I do have to take like a 1 week break or something like that, trust me, next week, guys, I'm about to unleash a monster. I've already started working on it.
I cannot wait. I am so excited for next week.
Gosh.
And we're not going to tell you what it is.
No, not at all.
Build in anticipation. Sit upon your toilet, cook those turds, and get ready. It's going to be a doozy.
Because you're going to shit your pants. What about you, Cass? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good today. I have decided to spare the listeners that I'm only going to talk about what I'm reading after I finish reading it, so that you don't hear me for 4 weeks in a row go, oh yeah, I'm still reading that.
No, listen, Twitter needs to know all my Dune opinions, and that means the podcast needs to know my Dune opinions too.
Yeah, Dune Where's My Spice isn't going to be a separate podcast. It's actually just going to be the first 10 minutes of this podcast where Teese catches us up with Dune.
I'm only a third of the way through. I'm really loving the subterfuge. Is that how you pronounce that word?
It's subterfuge?
Yeah, sure, that. Because people just send each other messages on leaves, and I think that's great.
Oh. I genuinely love, and I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing because I get so much joy from when, and I'm guilty of it too, when you read a word for so long but you've never said it aloud.
Yeah.
And I think of all the times on Critical Role where like Matt Mercer, like he called it a sigil, and people were like, no, Matt, it's sigil. He was like, how was I supposed to know?
I love that. One time I accidentally said facade instead of facade.
I had a friend who also did that, yeah.
Oh my god. I don't think my friends still let me live it down. And
no, that one's valid.
Thank you. I literally, to this day, a friend will just be like, oh, saw past their facade? I'm like, shut up! I beg of you!
I have a friend who also pronounced plaid as played for a really long time. His plaid patterned shirt, you know?
I have a friend who says chick instead of chic, and that makes me just go bananas each time it happens. No matter how many times I correct them, they still do it.
I really like archival. I'm like, oh, that's a choice. Archival? Yeah.
So delightful. So, Cass, what media have you been consuming this week?
Your boy decided to rewatch Breaking Bad. I don't know what brought it on.
Breaking Bad.
No, I know exactly what brought it on. I saw that fucking video on Tumblr.
Breaking Bad
Teese, how's the
remix.
song go?
Oh, boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Eh?
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Ah, 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 ah. I won't keep going. I have the whole thing memorized.
Yeah, I saw that and went, I want to rewatch Breaking Bad. So
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's been really nice because I'm familiar enough with it. I've only seen it through once before, but I'm at least familiar enough with it that I can paint while I'm watching it, which has been really nice. And it is, I mean, I'm stunned by how well it holds up. Like, I was expecting it to be, one of those things that was like really overhyped when I was watching it, but like it holds up well, and like there is so much purposeful intent done with everything. And I think Breaking Bad was really, and I mean, Vince Gilligan admits it, that like binge watching saved that show because it is such a slow burn, but I really, really appreciate that.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah. What about you?
So this past week, I kind of went off the shits and watched 5 different music documentaries, but
okay.
I will I will spare everybody and only talk about my favorite one from this binge. I also watched The Color of Pomegranates, but I'm not going to go into that because that's 1960s Austria. I think it's Austrian
art
house, and that was an experience. But
just you tweeting, "Hey, Criterion Collection, why is the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari not in your collection?"
Yeah, I have beef. I want to watch. So, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is just available on Netflix, but like, I want a Criterion version of it. Criterion, hire me to write an essay for your little pamphlet book. I've written a paper on it before. I can write an essay on it again.
Have you ever seen what's it called? Persona? I think it's called Persona.
No, but I've watched other stuff by that director. So yeah, but so my favorite music documentary of the week was Never Get Tired, which was a indie documentary about Bomb the Music Industry. And for people who don't know Bomb in the music industry, you might know of Jeff Rosenstock, who is their lead singer, who also has his own solo career. And Bomb the Music...
Don't know him, never heard of him.
I think you might enjoy... You probably would enjoy them. They're fun. But it Never Get Tired focuses on just Bomb the music industry, how they started, just their whole philosophy, and then their final tour and final concert. And if you enjoy music, obviously I would suggest it, but also if you're very anti-capitalist and
fuck yeah, baby,
and a socialist, I would highly recommend it, because Bomb the music industry's whole shtick was that they believed in accessibility in shows, so they would make entry fee super cheap. It was always all ages. They never sold merch, and if you did want merch, if you brought a t-shirt, they would spray paint shirts for you, and then you could tip them.
Cool.
They would never say no to a show. They would sleep on people's floors. They would do house shows, even as full-blown professionals. And it kind of was just like a situation where it was like, yeah, if you can come do a tour with us, do a tour with us. And if you can't, okay, we'll make it work. And I just really appreciate that relationship and their musicianship. And it clearly is a band made for people who really needed music growing up, if that makes sense. And I highly recommend it. Never Get Tired. You could just Google it, and if you pay the $5 to watch it, it was an indie production. It was actually kickstarted, so it would go right to the creator. It would help fund directly, which is really nice. And I happened to watch it via Spectacle, and Spectacle is a nonprofit film organization in Brooklyn, and they also do digital viewing. So if you are into movies, highly recommend checking out Spectacle NYC and their schedule. And I would also suggest Vidiots, which is another nonprofit, but that's on the West Coast. So that's what I watched this week.
I'm having a moment now where I don't think I fully appreciate music for the job and space it fills in my life. Because I am listening to music almost at every moment,
Mm-hmm.
whether that is to cope or to clear my head or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And just that statement you made about music made for people who really needed music growing up, like
Mm-hmm.
realizing in this moment that obviously there are people who still don't have access to music on the level that, we are privileged to,
Mm-hmm.
but people who, I mean, even long before did not have music,
Mm-hmm.
just as a general concept, that was readily available,
Yeah.
unless you went out and sought
Yeah.
it in like a public. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm having a moment.
And this
I'm having a
documentary
moment.
is one of those that makes you just want to pick up a guitar and learn how to play, which
Mhm.
I so vastly appreciate.
Do you have any instrument experience, Teese?
Oh, buddy. I played saxophone for 2 years, but that was only in elementary school.
That's very on brand.
I took trumpet lessons for a semester in college. I took
Mhm.
piano lessons for a year in high school. And I was in gifted and talented for voice from 3rd grade until 11th grade. And I've been singing consistently my whole entire life. But I'm
Mhm.
also probably the best whistler I know, which is my main instrument. Oh, I also am self-taught in ukulele and bass as well. Am I like good? No, but can I read chords and tabs and like pluck along and figure shit out? Yeah. So, yeah.
Didn't know a lot of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I God, I wish I was more musically inclined than I actually am.
But I mean, at the end of the day, like anything, it is about, the work you put in to develop the skill,
Yeah. And you could tell that my voice is my best instrument, I feel like. For sure.
Hell
But
yeah.
do you play any instruments? I feel like we've discussed this once, but I don't remember.
Let me burp real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, my esophagus is my no.
Congratulations.
So I played piano for several years growing up,
Oh,
and then I
wow.
took several years of cello,
Okay.
and I was pretty much always in and out of choir and show choir.
Wow,
So
King. I love to see
what's
it.
up?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Cass and
I
Teese
switched out of brick and
karaoke.
mortar school and became a hermit and finished off high school online. So
I respect that
I don't
deeply.
know if you wanted a little cast back lore, that's it. That should explain a lot for you.
I can see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles, who
Yeah.
pretty much, I would say most people who were online and who were on Tumblr know about Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles, whether that is a vague understanding of it or they've heard about it secondhand. I polled my Final Fantasy 14 group, and there were only 2 of them who didn't know what it was, and one of them immediately looked it up and was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember hearing about this. And the other one is just like, not a very, sorry Cassie, I'm dragging you. But yeah, so she's excited to listen to this week's episode and find out all about it.
I love that. I feel like going back on this, I was like, wow, this is a lot more than I realized it was.
I have a very different perspective of it now than I did when it was happening. And I would say when it was happening, there was a general community exasperation, anger, and derisive attitude towards Lemon Tea Flower, who we will get into.
Yeah.
I am kind of falling down a little bit the opposite side of that fence now, where I'm a lot more upset by the community's behavior than I am by Lemon Tea Flowers.
I think hindsight is 2020, and now that we are not 18 years old, it makes
God, is that how old I was when this was happening?
I was 18. What year were you born?
1996.
So you were 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's a pretty good schism. So on June 9th, 2011, a photo of Constable Suzanne Bork and a bear cub in Terra Nova National Park is featured on the St. John's newspaper of the Telegram. In November of 2012, that image kind of got picked up and circulated around Tumblr, and Tumblr user Team Cockett posted the photo with the caption, "Officer, come quick, there's been a robbery." The photo is of, let's see, she's a cute constable. She has like one foot kind of hit up in the air a little bit, and the other, she's like turned down to look at her side at this bear cub who is standing on 2 feet looking up at her. And the photo was taken like right after this bear cub had come up to her and brushed against her leg. The inciting incident was that the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Force, was called to the scene because there were reports of people feeding bears, which don't do that. Do not feed wildlife.
No,
like,
don't do it.
having a bird feeder in your yard is one thing, but do not feed wildlife beyond that, especially not in national parks or preserves. And so, like, people took this photo because, like, it's a cute photo. It's like a great photo op, right?
Yeah.
On January 6th, 2014, Tumblr user Typet reblogged the photo, saying it would be a great concept for a cartoon about a police officer and a bear cub going around solving crimes. And, like, yeah, that's a cute concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cute concept.
Mm-hmm.
And then on January 11th, Amy Goyan, who went by Lemon Tea Flower on Tumblr at the time and was 18, reblogged the post with a piece of art below. Amy, or Lemon Tea Flower's art style is like very cute and is very much still in vogue. It is like kind of the stylistic leaning that everyone points at and goes Cal art style, which we can unpack that one another day. There's no such thing as a Cal art style, and most of the things you're calling Cal art style aren't from graduates of Cal Arts. But anyway, it's a really cute style. Like, the color's really nice, and it is made to look like a fake television screen cap, where the officer has like her finger up and she's waving it at someone as the bear looks at her, and she says, "I'm sorry, but your attitude about my bear has a cell already," which, okay, it's fine. It's cute. And then 2 days later, she posted 3 more art pieces of the same style. And I feel like this really kind of took off when somebody animated fan art of
her fan art.
Somebody animated fan art of the officer and the bear in a cop car screaming along to "Wannabe" by Spice Girls. And that got a crazy amount of notes. And then the constable, Susan Bork, made a Tumblr account, and everyone started engaging and jumping in on this. So this all happens in January. On June 3rd of 2014, Amy Goyan, or Lemon Tea Flower, and Erica Zofchak launched the Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles Kickstarter. The Kickstarter asked $80,000 USD to create an animated pilot that the team could use to pitch to networks. The pilot would be 7 minutes long.
The series was described as a rookie Canadian officer and her sassy ex-circus bear partner keep the bizarre town of Backwoods safe in this diverse animated series pilot. With a cast of zany characters and devious villains like Ringmaster Pathos Millennium, who will stop at nothing to cause chaos in the town, Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles will certainly have their paws full. Our dedicated duo will do their best to show friend and foe alike that crime doesn't pay, even with the best intentions.
One of the things that kind of immediately struck me about this is that the project pitched itself on the idea of positive representation. Like, I mean, they immediately say in this diverse animated pilot series, one of the 3 listed goals of the show as a whole was, quote, to provide positive representation of LGBTQIA people, the disabled, and people of color. Our target audience of children ages 8 to 12 are just beginning to form their identities, and we know that it's incredibly important to have heroes they can look up to, heroes just like them, end quote. It's not the disabled, just like it's not the gays or the transgenders. You say disabled people, or people who are disabled.
So also, Lemon Tea Flower is not a native English speaker from what I can see. So I don't want to be, in this moment, I want to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because me, even as a gay person, sometimes I'm like, yes, the gays.
Yeah.
One day that's going to bite me in the ass because I'm going to say it in front of somebody that doesn't realize that I'm gay. But for the most part, I mean, obviously having the disabled is not the best way to phrase it. And maybe the person who read it over also wasn't a native English speaker. But once again, we can't read people's minds. But also, I don't want to just assume things right off the bat. You know?
Yeah. Again, too, this is one of those things where it's like, that is a very little drop in the puddle. But I thought it was worth highlighting, if anything, as a teachable moment, you know?
Yeah.
I would like to say this person was 18 at the time. And so before we even get into like the thicker and stickier bits of this, like, this person was 18. They were a child. Like, you know, you can say all you want that, like, at age 18, you're an adult and you should know better. But I really think that we have to
Baby,
allow
you gotta
people.
learn. There's a lot of stuff.
You have to learn. And, like, I've said this before, but, like, you have to also allow adults the space to learn because you don't know what experiences they were brought up with. Like, you know, let's give benefit of the doubt to Lemon Tea Flower here, right? And, like, they might not personally know anybody who's disabled, but they want to include that representation. And I think that intent in and of itself is important.
Agreed.
And, like, that is notable. And, like, they did have good intentions, I think, with all of this. It just got way out of their control.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the division of funding, and I did some
it.
math to break these into numbers for people.
Yes, do it up.
So this is based on the pie chart that they themselves posted, breaking down the funding, because when this Kickstarter went up, people were pretty much immediately like, whoa, where is $80,000 going to when you are making a 7-minute pilot? 7.5% would go to art management, that's $6,000. 17.5% would go to animation, that's $14,000. 4.37% would go to music and sound, that's $3,496. 5% would go to voice actors, that's $4,000. 7.5% would go to the art crew. I don't know what that means.
I don't
that's
either.
$6,000. 8.31% would go to production management, which included Kickstarter fees, and that's $6,648. 28.82% would go to production costs, that's $23,056. And 21% would go to merchandise, that's $16,800.
Which is ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous, exactly.
So much money.
The obvious elephant in the room that jumped out to absolutely everybody was merchandise. The Kickstarter had way more focus on merchandising than it did in perfecting its concept or paying appropriate wages to the entirety of the crew. And they kept saying that, you know, any additional money that was made on the Kickstarter or any money that didn't get spent by that merchandise budget would go back to the crew. But it was also unclear, like, what parts of the crew would receive that. My guess is that art crew was in charge of things like promotional illustrations and things for merchandise. All of that was a huge red flag, and merchandise included everything from an art book to signed postcards to t-shirts, totes, buttons, notepads, like everything. It genuinely feels like they went on one of those print-on-demand websites and just said, oh, we can make merch of every single thing available here. Like, they've got water bottles, let's make water bottles, which... not a great idea. Let's, from a background dealing with people who are involved in production, both pre-pro and post-production, the Kickstarter video they made to promote their Kickstarter, which has that theme song of Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles, that would have been a better product for them to present along with a comprehensive pitch deck, as opposed to trying to raise $80,000 to make a 7-minute pilot. Like, and then make merchandise on top of that. Like, if you cut out 16,000, let's just round it up to 17,000 for courtesy's sake, right? Like, that cuts the amount of money you have to raise considerably. And so many of, like, the Kickstarter rewards are things like, you know, you get this merch and this and this and this, and it's like,
do you even want merch? Like, do you even want
No.
merch of a Tumblr inside joke, essentially, turned animated
but kids
pilot?
Kids do.
I didn't even want that when I
No,
was
but
a
okay,
kid.
but we as kids are very different from kids during this, like, proper kids, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds who just, like, have
fair.
money to burn, right? And, like, who nowadays are blowing it on Minecraft YouTuber merch. Like, okay.
Because, like, I've been on Tumblr since I was 15, and, like, even then, I was like, I do not want any of this. Like, I've never been like, yes, I'm gonna buy a YouTuber's merch.
Yeah, but I mean,
Never.
like, that's also just, like, the kind of person you are. You're not...
True.
I would say you're not, like, a huge participator on that level, I guess.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are ways that nerd culture divides in weird ways.
You don't know how do you want to know a little fun fact about Teese for a minute?
Yeah, what's up?
I caught up. So when did Game Grumps start? Like what, 2012?
I think so, yeah, something like that.
I caught up to 3 years worth of Game Grumps videos within 4 months.
Yeah,
And
you
that,
could have done it faster.
uh, as a full-time college student with a on-campus job.
You could have done it faster.
Thanks. Thank you. 3 years worth shoved into 4 months. I remember like coming out of my room at school one time, and my friend being like, "Were you watching Game Grumps?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How far are you?" He was like, "Oh, I caught up." He's like, "You started 4 months ago." I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, Microruba?
Yeah. Microruba.
Microruba?
Yeah. So yeah, there was a time. There was a time when I was like that, but never once did I think about buying a Game Grumps shirt.
I have a Game Grumps shirt. I wear it to bed.
That's
It's comfy.
I love that. I wear a tie-dye shirt that I made to bed.
I went through a phase where I was like, I really want to just be like a person with a lot of graphic tees.
I mean, that's me now.
I hated how most graphic tees are fit when they're like women's cut. And it's like, would you like 3 inches of fabric scrunched up painfully into your armpit at all times? Here you go.
Yeah, that's fair. I do wear a lot of t-shirts.
I deeply feel that moment Aaron has on the 10-minute power hour where he goes, people keep sending me small because they think I'm a little baby. But in fact, I'm an XL because I'm a large fat man. I'm like, me too, Aaron.
I feel that. I'm a men's medium in shirts, sometimes even a large.
I don't know what my proper size is anymore because I just buy everything in like the biggest size because I love it to hang off of me.
I respect that so deeply. We're really getting off topic, but I just pre-ordered a shirt, but it was a Japanese brand, so I got the biggest size possible, hoping it fits.
Good luck. It's still gonna be too small now.
Oh, please, I hope not.
I think one of the other difficulties, right, in that they were so immediately out of the gate, like, we're going to pitch this to networks and, like, we're going to have so much diverse representation, is that even incredibly profitable cartoons like Steven Universe, which I don't think had fully kicked off in its popularity at the time, and later She-Ra, had to fight like hell to get the representation that they have. And, like, I'm sorry, I don't think an 18-year-old is going to be able to go into a studio without any prior experience and be able to make those kinds of demands or know what they're getting themselves into.
And especially with the two that you just mentioned, Rebecca Sugar and Noelle Stevenson both have had experience in the industry. Both had extremely, incredibly strong ties within the industry.
Yep.
Were well known, were well liked, and yet still had to fight like hell. I mean, God forbid. I mean, Owl House. Owl House is a pretty good example of that. That includes LGBT rep, and I don't know who. I can't think of who the creator is at this moment, but like, that was a pretty exciting moment. But also, you got to ask yourself, clearly, a lot of other cartoons had to pave the way and make the work first before it was okay, you know? And
and I mean, we're still taking steps. Nobody has fully run
This
yet.
is also 2012.
This is
Good luck, Buster Brown.
Well, this is 2014.
Oh,
but
good luck. Steven Universe's pilot didn't come out until 2014, so like, good luck.
So we're gonna rewind for a moment because when this Kickstarter kicked off and asked for $80,000, a lot of people got really upset. And when people on the internet get upset, they start digging. And people didn't have to dig very far to discover that Goyan used the handle lemon tea flower, but before that, she used the handle live the faggotry.
Oh my god, they're the same letters. I just realized that.
LTF, yeah. While on the surface, there is nothing wrong with reclaiming the F slur for yourself. That is totally fine. You do need to obviously be careful about how you are using that word as a queer person, and who you are addressing it with. And it's not appropriate to start flinging that word around at other people, even if you don't mean it in the very acerbic, violent way that it has been used in the past. That said, it is a very bold move to brand yourself with that word. Goyan's Society 6 and Redbubble, where she was selling Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles merch, used the handles live the faggotry in the URL. So it would be like society6.com/shop/live the faggotry. If you are a person who has been attacked with that word, that can be a lot. And you might immediately just disengage and say, absolutely not. Even if you are a person who is okay with the reclamation of that word, you might immediately go, nah, thanks. I'm not here for this one.
And especially if it's a TV show geared towards 8 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Already bad optics.
Especially, like, whether or not you're a child and you're exposing that word to that child, because let's be real, children know that word.
12-year-old Jimmy down the lane knows the word faggot.
He
like,
sure
let's
does.
be honest. And he's used it before.
But also, like, parents are buying these shirts for their kids as gifts. They want
you know what's going to come up on the credit card statement?
Thank you.
Society 6, live the faggotry.
Oh, no. And just like, you can't do that.
No.
I mean, you can, but you shouldn't.
I am willing personally to chalk this one up to a queer kid trying to reclaim a word that was used against them. But again, understanding that, like, this is a kid who did not understand the grander context of their internet presence and was in way over their head. And, like, immediately she was struggling to change the name of the shop. And then because she couldn't get the name of the shop changed quick enough, it really kind of read as like another red flag to the Tumblr community at large, and people were like, oh, so you're okay with it? And it's like, no, she apologized, but also it was just a mess all around, and she didn't know, because she's 18. And I feel like you shouldn't have to, I mean, you should know how to apologize at 18, but not to a giant community that is suddenly calling for you to be canceled. Like, anyone is going to deal with that with some really, really aggressive defensive mannerisms. And that's not the way, but like when you mob people, you're not putting them in a rational headspace. And then somebody brought up poor working conditions.
Oh boy.
Teese, would you like to read this Tumblr post?
Yes. So June 3rd, 2014, Tumblr user Potential for Art posted, "Guys, I super never usually do this, but I really gotta speak out about this project. A bunch of my friends used to work for this project, and I emphasize used to because people working on the project bullied one out of working, made another quit due to their hypocritical and disgusting work ethic, and is withholding/refusing payment for the work they've done, which is a lot. They even sent a termination letter that was basically a personal attack on my friend and threatened that if they said anything slanderous, they wouldn't get paid. Another was promised a certain sum of money to animate and clean up the previews and is wonderfully done, only to be thrown out and substituted with the work officially shown in the previews after previously demanding work to be done on a fast turnaround, despite her having a full-time job. Even after completing all of her work within the time she promised, she was only offered less than a fifth of what was previously agreed on. The writer that attended Van Calf lied to get sales, claiming that certain works were done by the creator when it was done by someone else in the group. Guys, do not support the project for the sake of my friends who were cast aside and bullied from this project, as well as the absolutely shoddy quality of what's presented here."
If you agree to pay people a certain amount, you need to pay them.
Do we know if these people signed cease and desists?
I
mean, not cease and NDAs. I'm
NDAs.
Sorry. Yes, thank you.
I don't think we have that information. I don't think that has been brought up anywhere. If anyone knows that it has, like that's kind of never been brought up in the case. That being said, if you break your non-disclosure agreement, depending on what that NDA says, you're still most of the time legally entitled to be paid for your work.
Yeah.
You just can't expect work from that company ever again. But again, you have an 18-year-old running the show who's unexperienced, who doesn't know how to manage these things, is in way over their head, and has gone from just kind of doodling fake screen grabs, right, to now basically turning themselves into an executive producer, a showrunner, a director, and without any prior experience in production. It's a mess. It is an absolute mess. And I'm sure a lot of these people still never got paid because money never got raised. At a $100,000 stretch goal, the campaign promised that, quote, our friends at Squishable.com have agreed to prototype a super special 7-inch Mr. Truffles plushie, end quote. Numerous people ended up reaching out to Squishable to verify this, and not receiving responses, they concluded that it was a lie on the part of the Kickstarter campaign, and the Kickstarter team was forced to release a statement where they shared from Squishable.com that there seemed to have been a miscommunication, and that Squishable believed there was no malice or ill will, but that they would not agree and had not agreed to the development of a Miss Officer Mr. Truffles plush. It was one of those things where I think maybe I'm trying to offer this person as much benefit of the doubt as possible, because again, they're 18. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think that their entire future career should be marred by this. As far as I'm aware, they're a working professional now.
They are. Yeah,
but
they are.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, nobody's really being hurt by this. It's just, well, except for the people not getting paid and being bullied, right? This is not something malicious or evil or, horribly manipulative, really. Even it is, I think, just a person, again, who got way in over their head, and I'm sure trying to juggle dozens of emails, both from people who are concerned with new Kickstarter pledges, what have you. They were not clear in their communications with Squishables and didn't ever agree to what they promised people.
And let's be real, so many times, even if you're just BSing with your friends, sometimes you'll be like, yo, let's do a Kickstarter for this, what can our goals be? And then that's like a shoot the moon goal. That's like a, oh shit, I guess we're gonna cross that bridge when we get to it goal. Like, I don't think anybody was planning on them to get to 100,000. And they were like, well, if we do, then we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, I guess, And especially if you're 18, like, when you're 18 especially, like,
and Kickstarter is still relatively new as a platform and a little bit unvetted and untested.
There's some real excitement there, I feel like. And you're just like, oh shit, like, this is gonna be great, And I really sympathize in this moment, because I understand that you really want something to succeed and you really want something to look appealing, and in the back of your mind you really can't promise this, but you're going to try to anyway. And I feel bad. Like, reading the more and more I read about this, like, I genuinely felt bad for Lemon Tea Flower.
They ended up comparing their Kickstarter to that of Bee and Puppy Cat, which was made up of people with experience in professional animation, and asked for 600,000 USD, with roughly 100,000 being allocated for each episode. But that was also being created by Frederator and Cartoon Hangover. They're not really comparable. Frederator is a vetted and proven professional company, and Lemon Tea Flower is an 18-year-old who, when under duress by an extreme site-wide harassment campaign, was posting harried and unclear apologies with statements of, quote, you guys made me cry, so I'm not an insensible piece of shit, end quote, or, quote, I'm sorry, if only because I'm cis it means I'm transphobic. Sorry, really, it's not on purpose, but I'm not transphobic. What kind of shit human being would be, end quote. Like, they're a kid. They're a kid who is really overwhelmed and feels backed into a corner and is being, called everything from a scam artist to being told that they are profiting off the death of an animal, which we'll get to that one. And they're receiving hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those messages. Part of the issue of the Kickstarter is that the Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles team acknowledges that no animators on the project will receive payment if the Kickstarter isn't funded. And I understand, with the basic mechanics of a Kickstarter, that a lot of what is going into it most of the time is either volunteer work, or if it is a company starting a Kickstarter, it is a loss that they are taking on with the anticipation of making it back in profit. This case was people volunteering because they thought, this was going to pay off, or because they were friends of Lemon Tea Flower, or favors had been called in. But I feel like using this as part of your marketing technique is underhanded and a little manipulative, and
it's very threatening.
Yeah, like, hey,
do it or they suffer.
If if you don't give us money, we don't put food on their plates. And like, I know that's not the explicit intention, but maybe just be wary of that if you see that in Kickstarters and question that a little bit, especially if it's coming from a large company. People need to be paid for their work. I mean, wiser options are to seek out investors firsthand, you know? There was another public outcry then about the bear in the original photo, and somebody started a rumor that it had been put down, and thus Lemon Tea Flower was trying to profit from animal cruelty. The bear in the original photo was relocated, according to Suzanne Bork. And obviously, you know, you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. It's the RCMP. Conservationists have shared a lot of concerns over the rate at which the government euthanizes bears by what they believe to be an overabundance of caution in Canada. And a lot of that is due to the fact that people will feed the bears. People think the bears are cute. And then the bears enter into public residence areas because their own homes have been, you know, invaded or developed upon, and they have nowhere else to go, and somebody calls the cops and they put a bear down. In 2019 alone, British Columbia killed more than 500 black bears and 25 grizzly bears. The bear that we're talking about with Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles is on the other side of the country, but I do just want to present that number as like an indicator of what the provinces of Canada usually kind of look at in terms of the destruction of bears, because it's called destroying the animal. And I think that gets a little bit more into the unintentional politics of this would-be show, right? Is that, you know, there's a conservationist aspect, and I think there are actually a lot of children's cartoons which do a really great job about educating kids about nature and interacting with wildlife and fauna. This is going to sound silly, but I think one of the best examples is Pokemon Sun and Moon, the anime, which does a fantastic job of teaching kids how to safely interact with flora and fauna in the rules of their universe, of course, but how to respect animals and how to understand, you know, like, you need to leave wild animals alone. As silly as that sounds for Pokemon, which is all about going out and catching wild Pokemon. I'm a kid who grew up watching Zaboomafoo, and I really, really loved animals growing up. I mean, I still do, but so much of conservation is not interacting with wild animals, with leaving them be, with appreciating them. And you know, part of the underlying problem of Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles, right, is you have the RCMP who are regularly euthanizing these bears because people think they're cute and they want to engage with them and they want to feed them. And like, you can't divorce that from the fact that you're talking about a cop who's in a crime fighting duo with a circus bear. And again, the show never got made, so we don't know what topics it was going to tackle. But also, an animal in a circus. Ooh, that's one I hope you would tackle too, because that's also a huge problem. Yeah. There's also a problem with the fact that it's propaganda.
Yeah, boy howdy, it really is.
Listen, I know this is gonna sound like crazy leftist bullshit, but you have to acknowledge the fact that the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they have a horrific track record of abuse and violence, especially against Indigenous populations. I mean, Canada's police situation is no better than the United States police situation. And when you are putting police in kids' shows as heroes, as trustworthy individuals, I understand that they are just a character, but you have to acknowledge, too, that the experience of the nice, trustworthy, always ready to help police officer is not the experience of many people, of most people. And by disseminating this image that, you know, she's just a cute cop who's running around with her bear, isn't that adorable? There are layers. There are layers of nuance. Yeah. Paw Patrol reinforces the police state, and I'm not kidding.
It does. It does. I'm anti-Paw Patrol. But it's just, I get it. It's a funny, cute picture, and in theory, it sounds like a great idea. I think, and let's be real, I don't think anybody, the original person who made the comment in 2014, their name.
I don't think they intended for this to turn into what it was.
Tumblr user Typet did not expect somebody to really go through with this. And there's so, and let's be real, like, so often do ideas come to us without any reflection. It just kind of pops up after we experience one small thing. And yeah, it sounds really fun, but there's, especially with the state of propaganda, and at the time when this went on, so this is July, like early July, like July, early 2014. A month later, Ferguson happened as well.
Yeah.
And I think that really shows the climate of our police state. And obviously, there are situations with the police, but this is like post Trayvon Martin as well. You know,
Yes.
There's already a conversation about how police treat animals and children and people around them. The Mountie, I guess, is seems very lovely, seems very kind. I mean, she was nothing but sunshine.
She's still a cop, though.
She's still a cop. She's still a cop. And I think in that question, and even at the time, she's like, oh, well, another bear was euthanized, but not this one. And still like, bro, a bear was euthanized.
There was still another bear that was euthanized.
You were going to
even if this one was relocated.
Yeah, you were going to euthanize this bear, but you just happened to get a photo off with it first. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot.
On July 14th, 2014, the campaign posted a final update. Hello, squad mates. I'd like to take the time to thank you all for your support. The love and excitement you've shown for our project is incredibly moving and pushes us to strive for even more great things in the future. As was stated in the last update, we will be canceling our Kickstarter funding instead of last night, this morning. We'd just like to reiterate that this is okay. Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles did not fail, and you'll see us again in the near future as we pursue a smaller means of bringing you the duo you desire. Our goal now is to revamp the project and make it even better and more exciting for you, our fans. We have plans in motion already to continue pitching it as a series, as well as plans for a webcomic, merchandise designs, and accompanying animated clips. We would like to try and have the comic and design launch sometime in October. You may notice a lot of our information, including our videos, coming down over the next few days. We'll still keep our GIFs up on official missofficerandmrtruffles.tumblr.com for you all to enjoy. A lot of extremely hard work was done by a group of fantastic, talented, and enthusiastic people. Thank you to everyone who was involved in the production of Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles, including all past and present artists, animators, voice actors, musicians, producers, and the families that had to deal with us during the stressful month leading up to our launch. The fact that we have all managed to do this much from all corners of North America is really inspiring. I cannot wait to see what the future holds for us. Once again, thank you all so much. We love and appreciate every one of you. We are so glad you felt the positive message that we are trying to spread is worthy of your time and support. This experience has been one that is indescribable. We hope you'll stay tuned, and we'll see you again. Always, the Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles team. I feel like this concept could work as a webtoon now. I mean, it did never come back, to nobody's surprise.
No.
But I feel like it could work as a webtoon.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. You know what's really mind-boggling to me, though, was that nobody lost their money in the long run. I mean, obviously the animators and the people who worked on the project, they lost their time. But at the end of the day, like, everybody who did kickstart this project, it was canceled. Like, it was returned to them.
You didn't get charged.
People always act as if this is a scam. It's a scam. It's a scam.
Like,
Not
you remember
really.
that, like, huge Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles scam? And it's like,
it wasn't
no,
the
but I remember a dozen other
project.
Kickstarter scams that nobody talks about anymore.
It wasn't the Ankh project. It wasn't Omori. It wasn't like, there's so many.
Hey, Omori came out.
It sure did, but I'm still waiting for my Switch code. And I don't want to talk about it. But like, it wasn't like, people treat this as if it was a scam along with the greats, but in reality, it just was somebody who just tried to stomp around in shoes too big.
Yeah.
Like,
this is so much the evidence of like why television productions are in pre-production for so long, for years, before like the nitty-gritty production work starts, is because of all of this, like because of the little nuances that Teese and I were talking about, because of the visibility, the optics, the handling of it. And like, I don't think this ever would get picked up for a pitch because of this background now. Like
I could see it being like, hi, we're gonna make this clip, this Kickstarter will help fund us do a pitch Bible or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, that makes more sense to me than just being like, I am going to give you this pilot. I have nothing else to show you besides this pilot. Also, a few Tumblr GIFs. And I don't think Baroque was ever a part of the production of it. She wasn't like
she just thought it was cute.
Yeah, she wasn't like a freelancer for them. Like, not a freelancer. What's the word I'm looking for?
Contractor?
Yeah, she wasn't a contractor for them or anything like
Did
that.
they license her appearance? I don't think so. I mean, she was the inspiration behind it, right? But like, she was so deliberately the inspiration behind it that part of it makes it a little like, yeah,
and
maybe.
It's cute. It's cute. Like, yeah, sure, use my likeness or whatever. But also, if you were profiting off my likeness, one time BuzzFeed posted one of my Tumblr posts without alerting me, and I felt like a wild animal. I would eat somebody's throat if you used my likeness for animation character without my permission. Like, I just and it's so clearly just a over hopeful and naivety, and it's so disappointing because at the end of the day, like, the only person that really got hurt the most were the people who worked on the project.
Yeah.
For the rest of us, we just remember Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles. Like, I mean, I posted before we started to record. I posted the picture, and I was like, "Wow, wouldn't it be funny if somebody made a TV show about this?" And just everybody's reactions, even to, is like, "Oh boy, oh no."
We never have the conversation, right? We never have the conversation of what happens in the fallout of this level of public mobbing.
Yeah.
And like, this level of public mobbing upon a very small creator, you know, who doesn't have safety nets, who doesn't have, you know, social collateral, let's say, and what that does to them. And I last year, Alexandria Neonakis, I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, she made a tweet about how if you aren't getting commissions, your skill level probably just isn't there yet. And like, she's not wrong, but a lot of people got really, really upset with her tone, and she was harassed mercilessly. I'm pretty sure sent death threats, and like, she's like, yeah, this is something I've had to deal with now and like unpack and handle, because it is traumatizing to be mobbed on this level. I don't think we have the conversation enough about what happens to people and the level of fear and paranoia and mistrust that must occur after this guy. The level of fear too. And like, I'm not talking about people who have been mobbed because they're rapists, i.e. Noah Bradley. I'm talking about people like Lemon Tea Flower who got in over their head, made a bunch of like really human mistakes, and at the end of the day didn't really hurt anyone in a really serious or malicious or vile way, but made mistakes, and unfortunately, you know, people lost time, people lost money, people might not have been treated well on the production team. And like, they also have to deal with like kind of bearing this weird either secret or burden of shame, right? Of like, oh yeah, I was a part of like the Miss Officer and Mr. Truffles debacle. It's a mess. It's a mess.
It's not good. And I mean, Lemon Tea Flower is still active on Twitter. They still work in animation. According to their Twitter, they're an animation supervisor at AI Animation Studios. They live in Mexico. Don't harass them. We say this every episode. Leave them alone. They're clearly living their life. They're clearly doing their job. They like don't even. They have a pretty big following on Twitter, but like, I don't.
Because they're a good artist.
They are. They're really good artists, and they've continued to grow, and they clearly know how to take care of their job, you know. But like, for instance, they don't really like, they post captions for their art in English, but for the most part, they don't really from what I'm seeing, they don't really post that much. They don't tweet personally. They mostly post only art. And obviously they probably have like a personal or whatever, because 28,000 people following you is really scary, and I too would not be making dumbass tweets at 28,000. But it's, you know, when something like that happens to you as an 18-year-old,
I get scared at 50 people looking at my tweets.
I have 820 people following me, and even I'm like, oh boy, this could ruin my life one day.
I mean, we're at the point too right now with the podcast, right? Where like we are very careful and considerate about what we say and the topics we choose to tackle. Because there are some that are way heavier and way less cut and dry than others.
Yeah.
And things are very polarized right now, and I think will continue to be for some time. But I'm very happy that our community seems to be one that, you know, understands the shades of gray, are here with us to kind of sit down and have a discussion with us about things that can be discussed.
Yeah.
Unlike what Mr. Greg Ellis thinks is discussable. But yeah. All that said, if you have ideas for topics or feelings, or you just want to get in touch with us, you can reach out to us via email at authorsnotepod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at authorsnotepod. If you enjoyed the podcast, it is super helpful for us if you leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you listen to, and maybe share us with a friend. If you really enjoyed the episode, maybe consider kicking a few bucks our way. That also helps us a ton. It pays for our hosting fees, all sorts of stuff, and things we have in the works. We are on Ko-fi, that's Ko-fi, and we're Authors Note Pod over there. If you want to find more of my work, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, what have you, at Valhethella, that's ValHettela. Teese, if people want to find more of your work, where can they get you at?
You could just scream into the void and I'll hear you. Just gotta be really loud. You could find me on Twitter at Vicunad, Vicunad. I guess you could find me on Instagram there too, but I haven't posted since Mother's Day 2020. So
time hasn't existed since then.
No. So just find me on Twitter, I guess. You obviously can reach out to us on one of the pod accounts, and even if it's Cass who's answering, I'm still there. Cass and I read all of your messages together.
We do.
If you enjoyed our theme music, that was by James Waiulo. You can find him on Bandcamp under James Y. And Cass, who did our cover art?
Our cover art was done by the wonderful Nyalius. She doesn't post much art, but you can find her on Twitter at Nyalius. That's Nyalliest. Until next time, stay safe, wear your mask, be considerate and conscientious of other people online, and maybe give them the benefit of the doubt, where applicable. And stay safe.
Stay
Bye.
safe. Bye. Miss Officer
Sir
and
and
Mr.
Mr.
Truffles.
Truffles.